Welcome back, guys. Okay, so we were talking about the timeline of Bitcoin and what's going on right now in the world of cryptocurrency, finances, and more importantly, just this new space that we're going to be all a part of even more as it progresses. So, do you want to go ahead and take over, Max, since you are on some hot topics with what you're going into tomorrow in Prague?
Well, fellas, this is going to be, again, one of the really exciting conferences that are happening in the Bitcoin space, in the Cypherpunk space, in the space of future money and future technology. It's the Hackers Congress in Prague, organized by the Parallel Police. And it is a organization filled with cypherpunks and freedom fighters in the digital age. And of course, talking about all the stuff that matters. A lot of it is going to be about Bitcoin, of course, because Bitcoin is quite cool. But we also have stuff like, of course, the Purism laptop, which I talked to the CEO, Todd Weaver, just a couple of days ago on the WCN World Crypto Network. But then further talking about mesh networks, talking about satellites, encryption, privacy, and tools to defend yourself and tools to defend your freedoms, which, of course, Cypherpunk and Anarchy is all about. So I'm really looking forward to a bunch of interviews live on the World Crypto Network.
And Nico, what about you with this Helsinki conference?
Right, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. We are organizing this biggest blockchain event in Finland so far. It's called the Helsinki Blockchain Summit 2018. And yeah, it's pretty honorable because Konsensus Network actually has a half a day all dedicated to our program. So you're going to hear speakers as myself and Max here. Also, Raphael is scheduled to make an appearance, and there's some others familiar faces. And yeah, I'll drop the link in the chat for you guys. So yeah, you can actually use a Konsensus 2018 code to get a pretty nice discount for the second day, which brings the price to a reasonable, I think it was 160 euros without the tax. So that's pretty reasonable for the second day. And you can check the program from the link. I'll drop it in later. But yeah, definitely excited about that. It's going to be the first like real big event that I'm going to be talking in. So that's going to be cool.
That sounds amazing. I'm really excited just to see it. I won't actually get to be there. I try to take the time off, but I did let you guys know that we should get that code out for everybody so that they can get that discount early on. And I'm excited to hear the talks that you guys are going to put out as well, actually, just to hear you guys collaborate in person. And yes. Raphael, what about you? How you doing, man?
I'm good, thanks. Also working on this blockchain summit, the same that Nico is, and then also there's going to be a Neo meetup tomorrow here in Helsinki. So I'm going to be there also, just to check the stuff out, and all kind of little cool meetups coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Hackers Conference. The Riga conference was really cool. The Helsinki conference is going to be amazing because you guys will be there on the inside. So I'll be watching. I'll be pretty much just sitting there waiting for the live streams. And I think everybody in the audience is excited as well because just to be the show is actually being highlighted in the biggest conference. So that's going to be exciting. Also, guys, if you get a chance, go check out the store. There's some really good merchandise over there, and it's never too late to support Konsensus. So anyways, guys, so let's talk about the history of Bitcoin and where we are at today versus a year ago when Ross Ulbricht was put in jail for having the Silk Road. And we'll start into that first. Do you want to go into that, Max, a little bit?
Oh yes, the Silk Road is one beautiful example of good entrepreneurship in Bitcoin. It was one of the first true enterprises that came about in this new economy that was solely based on Bitcoin. And I can truly appreciate that on many different layers, absolutely. Because I self try to use as much Bitcoin as I can, and then having such a beautiful marketplace as Silk Road was is perfect. It had decent encryption, right? It was running over Tor, so that is nice. But used PGP in most of the communication, so it was okay. Could have been of course, been much better now in hindsight. But that's development, right? But it was a perfect, beautiful step of a free market, a true free market emerging with a free sound money backing it, and that was in my opinion, historical step in this rise of Bitcoin towards becoming a truly globally accepted and liquid sound money, which it already probably is at this size, and everything now is just going to be exponentially more beautiful. So the Silk Road really started something that was of immense importance, and we are still feeling its effects today. So this is something that is also something to celebrate about. Of course, there is a huge tragic history behind it.
Yeah, it's a tragic situation with Ross, but I also agree that Silk Road was just a great invention. I mean, like it was a huge step for Bitcoin, and even though it was taken down, it didn't change anything. There's just now much more of these smaller little marketplaces, so it didn't actually it didn't kill the situation that Silk Road got taken down.
Yeah, I mean, like so often, these kind of regulations normally just hinder the regular, lawful users, not the evildoers of the world. If people want to break the law, they will find a way, and this is a classic example of virtue signaling and just basically getting a scapegoat and putting somebody for their life away just to make a point, and that's, in my opinion, pretty evil.
Yeah, just to make sure that everybody else also knows, there was also a lot of these legal marketplaces at the time with Bitcoin also. One, for example, called BitMit, which I used a lot. There was these normal legal stuff that people could buy. I, for example, used to buy cigarettes from Moldova and ordered them to Finland. I was wondering first if it's totally legal or not, but after a few times the customs went and searched my packages, and it was totally okay. They didn't say anything. They didn't tax me anything more or like that. So it was a useful thing, Bitcoin. I mean, from the start, not just for illegal activities and drugs and all that.
Yeah, I mean, this Silk Road was just the middleman. The thing that really put him in jail was he was messing with their markets, and there's nothing worse than messing with a dictator's property and toys, and their money as well. So I did a talk about this quite a while back, and it was on an evening talk that I do called Conversations with the Skeptic. It was just after this is kind of a big deal. There was some reporting that JW had done. Point in case, guys, he wasn't, he was just the middleman. He's just an entrepreneur. He didn't do anything that technically was illegal. He just made a website, and people were using Bitcoin, which they couldn't control, and he was messing with their markets. And it's really sad. It's really scary how much power they have. This is just an entrepreneur doing his work. He was just doing what he does best. You can make a program, and that's what he did. And they found somebody they could put it up on, and then they took out Ross, and he's a sound guy, and he created a little bit of anarchy, and we need that. And it's just crazy. I mean, the more that we talk about this stuff, the more you realize having things like a cold card, having things like offline storage for your cryptos is a really important thing. I just did some research on one of the exchanges just got taken down. So if you have money on an exchange, you really shouldn't be doing that. I think that was on Tone Vase on one of his morning chats from Riga, and he was talking about how one of the exchanges got taken down. The SEC is there. They can go any country and take down whoever they want if they're messing with the money. So this is almost borderless as well. Unless you have like a Purism laptop or like one of those Wasabi wallets, because then you can have stealth mode. These things are very important, and running a node is just as important, because that's the opposite. That's an offensive defense. You're helping the network. Use Bitcoin. You're helping the network. Don't be scared of something that makes them scared. So you guys want to talk a little bit more on that Silk Road, or we should go to the next one?
I was going to point out that I'm not really sure, but I think that Ross Ulbricht didn't even create actually the Silk Road. He was just given the title of Dread Pirate Roberts later. So he didn't actually even create the site. He was just, for what I understand, he was the main, admin or something like that. And the situation where he was actually sued also. Well, one thing that made a big difference in his trial was that people were saying that he was trying to get someone killed through the black markets. I mean, like, what if I understand it correctly? There was someone blackmailing him, and he was talking about with some kind of a biker ganger. That maybe we should probably take this guy out. But, well, this situation is, for what I understand, he got blackmailed. There's you would go on and panic and do some stupid shit anyway. So the consequences he has to pay for everything he's done is, absurd to me. He didn't even actually do anything. He was just talking about some options and, being an admin, for what I understand.
Precisely, and all these deeds that were, or most of them that were traded over Silk Road, were nothing criminal. Speaking from a moral point of view, there were no victims on that side. There was free exchange, yes, and free exchange of shady products, so to say. Of course, there were drugs shipped, a lot of them, but after all, drugs are not an offense. They do not hurt anyone. They are not violating someone else. The person is always choosing to smoke that weed himself, or even shoot up that heroin. Yes, that's his body, right? I wouldn't do it, but I have nothing to say against him. And that means that if fundamentally there were almost no victims on this market. And therefore, it was still, in my opinion, a completely ethical thing to do, to provide this service, to provide this marketplace. Because again, on this marketplace, there were a lot of benefits to these consumers of all goods. Now, there were people selling socks, and there were people selling shirts and merchandise and all other stuff. Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff happening on there. There still is. Darknet marketplaces are cool, and the same goes with something, for example, like Open Bazaar, where they have search engines that filter out all the drug stuff, and you only are left with the shopping live experience, where you can get stickers and pins and clothes and computers and whatnot, all traded peer-to-peer. That is what this revolution was all about: a free and peer-to-peer marketplace, not just of ideas, but also of goods and services.
Exactly, and that's a classic example of victimless crime, drugs in general. I mean, the only reason why there's some violence and some bad things associated it because it is illegal. It has been made illegal, which means that it's run by criminals and criminal gangs normally that resort to all kinds of nasty things. And if it would be purely peer-to-peer, and personally, I don't see any problem with that. I think it will work much better. But as mentioned, that there's competition. This kinds of marketplace, this free trade is not great for business for many big corporations. So I suspect there's kind of malalignment of interests there. If you think about big companies and what are they truly trying to accomplish, and that's also one reason why personally I choose to support smaller open source projects rather than bigger ones. And yeah, it could be difficult nowadays, especially we have Google, who provides such an excellent service that is very difficult to replace. and you will end up making all these trade-offs that might actually land you in jail in the future if you're not careful, because the rules keep changing, and that's what's truly terrifying here. What do you guys think?
How you said that corporations actually run the drug business and all that, I'm not sure if it's really true, but I've read something about that the amount of opium in United States was really, really much smaller before US went to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the place where most of the opium comes from, for what I understand. And there is no planes, actually, tourist planes flying that much into US. There's only just military planes. But somehow now the United States is there's so much opium going around. I just think that's a little weird.
I'm gonna let you know how that happens. So you want to go ahead, Nico, on this real quick before I?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so America is the #1 importer of drugs illegal in the world. I mean, it just is how it is. It's not just because it stays in America, though, because a lot of it just is they're the middlemen. But back during Cold War and before that, they were putting it in soldiers' bodies, and it helps fund pharmaceutical companies. It helps fund their private prisons, and it helps fund their control of the economy by making a problem in the society. So, yeah, it's insane how they're getting it in. They took out Escobar because of the same reason. I mean, I was living in Colombia when Escobar was being hunted down, and I actually left, luckily, just in the 90s. So I was pretty lucky at the same time. That was somebody like Ross Ulbricht. He was giving people goods that they wanted and exporting Colombia's finest to the world, and America wasn't their leading. They weren't getting their fill. They weren't getting their cut. They weren't getting their part. And so they hunted Escobar down, and they used their own people on the inside to get him out. This is all control. I mean, look at Pakistan. The reason they went to not Pakistan, excuse me, the Afghanistan was because of the heroin. Like you were saying, Raphael, this stuff is the finest quality heroin in the world. I mean, the UK has a huge problem because they are doing the exact same thing. America's like a copy print of the UK, so they are secondary to none when it comes to doing what the UK is doing, let alone being controlled by them. So now we have Bitcoin. Now we can do something with it, and we have sound money. When you no longer have to use their money, then you don't have to buy into their system. But this drug war is in the streets. It's in our neighborhoods. It's happening around us. I mean, I don't want my kid raised up around that kind of stuff. So I left America. Point in case, we gotta keep the audience together. We gotta talk about Bitcoin. We need to talk about KYC, AML. Know your security measures. I mean, hold your own keys. If you can store security and wealth into things like other blockchain projects, do that. But make sure you know that it's this constant offense. The only defense you have is your brain and how you use the things around you. Otherwise, you're just funding their thing. And I feel bad for Ross. He's in jail. He's a sound-minded person. And I got to hear an interview with him and his mom, or with his mom being questioned, and it just seems like a sad thing. So it makes it's just a sad time, but also realizing that these people are martyrs. They represent something real. So you want to jump in on that, Nico?
Yeah, well said. I mean, these are the modern martyrs. Snowden and all these people that get crucified all the time. And then I do think people start to wake up to this a little bit more and what's happening. And how come these people who are providing services and information, vital information for people, how come they get punished so badly? And I think it's not going to last very, very long. People will want different kinds of laws, and people. I do think I have hope that Ross will be released. He will get the presidential pardon, maybe. But yeah, I think that's his only hope, really. But the movement has been getting quite a bit of traction, which I'm happy with. I also personally donated, and I think there's actually a good shot that it might work. But yeah, this brings down to, like you mentioned, the operation securities. I mean, personal security rather. Yeah, and why it's so important for each and every one of us, because like mentioned before, who knows what the laws and the rules are going to be in the future. Something that you don't consider right now, that you're doing something illegal, might be used against you later. And that's why it's important to protect your data, not because you're doing something wrong now, but because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And the more you have information about yourself floating around there, it will be used against you in this kind of situation that you might go into. So to me, it seems logical to try to narrow that down as much as possible. I would like to do a show on this. Actually, I've been planning it for a while, but I need some really expert guests there, because I'm in the process of upgrading my own operation security. I still use Google products and stuff like that, but I really don't want to. I want to get rid of actually my cell phone as well, and stuff like that. I think that would, first of all, protect my privacy, and also give me a lot more free time to meditate, to actually drive home all the lessons that I've learned. Because right now it's almost like bang bang, information like coming from everywhere, and then you do need the time, more and more time, to digest that. At least my brain gets overloaded. So I think we get a lot of noise nowadays, and a lot of that noise can be harmful. Like they're actually collecting each and every piece of data about you, even recording your voices and faces. And oh, sorry, I think I thought I lost you.
You're good.
There.
You're totally good,
Okay,
man. Keep
good. All right. So yeah, I definitely want to do this show on the operation security, and I know Max has been looking into that a lot. And maybe Max, you can go a little bit into how for example, you can protect your wealth and you can protect your sovereignty with this kind of new tools. I know you're super savvy, and you actually have your own show on this open source everything with all this cool nerdy stuff, which I love.
Well, this open source everything was a show that I personally needed. So I was like, hey, okay, that's perfect. Then let's go out and do it. And it's all about what are the amazing open source, truly liberating Libre software, free software products that are out there that you can use. And not only because they protect your privacy and your dignity, but also because they are a lot of fun. Because honestly, talking about stuff like the Wasabi wallet, which is by far the most amazing and interesting software wallet that we have out there at this moment, is amazing. Talking about the most secure hardware wallet, which is the Cold Card, is just cool. There are amazing tools out there, and they are really weapons of self-defense. And that's what makes them so beautiful. But people just have to realize that they're out there, and that they can claim self-sovereignty, that they can claim their dignity back and their freedom back, because, well, that's what it is kind of all about, right? Freedom. So I love talking about these amazing products.
Yeah, and I do agree that OPSEC is definitely a thing that people should get more education on. And just a couple of things that I was going to mention from the topics before is that I don't think that medical companies actually have an incentive to actually cure these diseases or anything like that. Or if they do, they have to just, go on and find out another disease, so their profit don't. So the profit don't drop down. So it's kind of like that. If they really cure you, it's gonna take off from their profits. So it's kind of like a really weird situation for them. And another thing is that even though you wouldn't want to buy drugs, you can judge your freedomness of your money by actually thinking, what can you buy with it and what can you not. And I think that, fiat money is actually pretty controlled. I'm not sure if it's in China, where you can't even buy a chewing gum.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, the freedom of the money. Like, you can ask yourself, can I, like, if I make this purchase, will I have to be sorry for it later? That's pretty much it. Like, do you want this to be in your bank statement that the government has the access to, pretty much? And a lot of times you probably don't want that information to be there for one reason or another, and that doesn't mean that you're doing something illegal necessary. So at least it's nice that we have this option nowadays. We can, when proper OPSEC precautions are taken, you can actually safely use this kind of money. And also what you said about the medical companies' incentives, I think it's pretty obvious how this game is played, because I mean, it is a game of money after all. The goal is profits, not healing people. So then why would indeed the big pharmaceutical companies make medicines that would actually cut into their profits? Yeah, that's an interesting thing to, of course, think about as well.
Yeah, and one thing that I was going to mention is that you never know what kind of laws are they going to make, afterwards. Like, for example, there might be really stupid laws, like if I understand it correctly, in few states in US, you cannot go on and put a bucket outside when there's raining. You cannot go on and gather up this water because they are saying that someone else owns this water. You have to pay for all the water you get. And also there's this kind of laws that you cannot go into a forest and pick up berries and eat them because they are not tested by these companies. So you cannot know what's in them. And, it's just crazy.
Well, where does it stop? I'll go ahead, Max.
And that is ultimately where positivist law leads you. It is a law that is dictated by human whim, by a group of people or one individual who just decides what is right to do and what is wrong. And that means that he's just going to say, no, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. So you have to be approved by this food company so that you are protected. Right? It's this nanny state ultimately. Jeffrey Tucker wrote an amazing book about that, Bourbon for Breakfast, which is a nice title. And he's talking about how bad it even became that the government in the United States ordered the water pressure of your shower to be super, super low, in a sense that you could no longer get clean. Because it was now by government dictate that it can only use so much water per minute that it was running. So it is completely, you really have to hack your shower head so that you can live a free man, which is a kind of sad state. And negative law and that with that I mean natural law is, in my opinion, the counterweight to organize legal and moral code.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know in America there's this guy who created an engine that you can use water, and it runs his car. And they paid him to not release the way he makes it, so he couldn't patent it. And yeah, I mean, we can't grow things. You can't eat things that are natural. You can't. I know where I'm from in Oregon. I actually did a report on this. There is a thing that you cannot store the rainwater. You have to have like a license to have these barrels. And yeah, imagine not being allowed to live off the grid. And I watched a movie about this last night. These people were trying to live off the grid. And up in Portland, in Oregon, we have like, excuse me, the biggest Central Park. It's huge. I mean, people get lost in it. And these people were living up there, and they were using the system. I mean, they would go into the city to get what they needed, like rice and stuff, and they would live out there, and they would live off the grid. And the government came out and found them, and they were like, no, you cannot live in the park. You're not allowed to live in the park, and you're not allowed to use Bitcoin. You're not allowed to grow your own coffee and your own green. It's just, where does it stop? The next thing, we're not allowed to see colors. If anybody's ever read The Giver, it's a kind of about that, and this idea that this control around us dictates who's allowed to do things. They're trying to pass a law where only certain states are allowed to abort their babies, and only certain people who have a certain amount of money can. So that makes this huge problem. I mean, same with pharmaceuticals and vaccinations. I mean, the world it's a stressful environment. That's why our brains are being twisted and pulled. And Nico, you had said something about getting rid of your cell phone. I think you should just get a Purism cell phone. That might help you. Then you would have like a weapon cell phone. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that Purism cell phone. And one thing just to mention here, I wonder why the cities don't grow, any kind of plants that grow something to eat to people, like oranges or apples or something like that in the middle of the city. It would be much better and, help the poor ones.
About helping the poor ones, that sounds like something a politician would say, like, using something as a way to signal a virtuous behavior, which is, I think, one key component of the mind control that is imposed upon us. And we are made to believe that some things are virtuous and we should do some things and others we shouldn't. And then somebody else always decides for you, like you said. Somebody decides for you what is better for you. Like, we don't know what's the best for us, which is kind of weird, because we should know ourselves the best. And if that's not the case, then something should be wrong, because I mean, we are not property of anybody, who made us or who knew us better. At least that's not the way I experience things. So I would defer in matters, regarding my life, to myself and nobody else. And I don't think anybody has the right to tell anybody else how to live either. And people should have that freedom and choice. And I do like the way these tools are developing nowadays to allow us this kind of stepping away from the norm. However, I'm worried about these decentralized systems. How will you conceive this kind of how do you bring alive this kind of truly decentralized protocol, for example, like Bitcoin, which was quite a feat, and I think one of the reasons why it has been so successful is because it flew under the radar quite a long time, and it had time to actually grow network effects. And now it seems like it's quite impossible to kill. But how to sprout a new project like Bitcoin? That's a challenge, because what Satoshi did was genius. And I don't think that's a feat easily accomplished by many ideas. And then we might have more of Ross Ulbrichts in the future, and I'm sure we will. I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I think that you cannot have a central point of failure. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is, again, where Bitcoin's fundamental strength comes from, right? It is that we do not need a central point of control, of authority, right? Control is with the users, with the full nodes. And that is why Bitcoin is so rudimentally strong and anti-fragile, because there are many free individuals coming together voluntarily to create this, well, kind of collective of free nodes, right? Of free peers on the network. No masters, no slaves, true anarchy. And this is the fundamental difference, and why Bitcoin is so resilient. And of course, this resiliency has to be tested, and is always tested with attacks from the outside and from within. But fundamentally, the cool thing about such a starfish system, right, as Nico likes the book, The Starfish and the Spider, which is truly a nice illustration of the power of Bitcoin, that it cannot be destroyed and divided easily. So Nico, go a bit further in detail with these starfish organizations.
Right. I mean, you could as well call it the cockroach or sewer rat organization, because it's super difficult to kill, and of course, where like you said, it comes from the book Starfish and Spider. I highly recommend anybody to read it. Quite a short book, 200 pages, and a pretty easy read. Illustrates nicely the strengths and some weaknesses, of course, of a decentralized system and how it functions, and what are the benefits. And the major benefit is that it's nearly impossible to kill unless you kill the ideology. And the ideology behind Bitcoin is freedom. So that's darn difficult to kill, as the history can attest to that. People always have been wanting to be free, so I don't think it's super easy to kill at all. And this is like what happened in the Amazon rainforest. They have these tribes that have these leaders that are not elected. They're not dictators. They are chosen by, they are followed by rather the tribe members from their own free will. And this is a key word here, free will. So there can be leaders in a decentralized system, but the leading must be done by example. It must be done not from an authoritative perspective rather than a flat perspective, so that everybody is at least on the level playing field. Of course, everybody is good at something. So we have different roles and we have specialization. That's a whole other thing. That's why I think in the future we're going to have a lot of these collectives like open source entrepreneurs that are just gathering together and building amazing things. And I think that's the future corporate. And yeah, the anti-fragility. I like that word a lot that you brought up, Max, because it's really an anti-fragile system. Because once you kill one of those tribe leaders, there will be another one propped up by the community. And because the idea is freedom, and the ideology won't simply die by eliminating the leader. Yeah, there is no leader of the thought, the idea, the technology, the protocol, and that's the whole point of decentralization. And that's why it's so difficult to kill. It's really impossible to kill unless you go after the ideology, and then you would have to really convince everybody that sound money is not a great idea, that inflation is the way to go. And I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And what do you guys think?
That's a lot to. That's so true, man. You should have been on a. I mean, I'm glad we got that on tape. It's true. I mean, if you can get away from the idea, if you can get people. That's kind of the thing with religion. If you just twist it enough, people just believe whatever you're feeding at them. But if you get away from this control and every single sense of security and a sense of how you look at the world, then you can literally control your decisions better. You can literally figure out what is going on around you rather than just feeling like we're not really in control of what's going on around you. You're just kind of part of the problem or feeding into it. And yeah, man, I'm still kind of digesting that. The ideology, if you kill it, I mean, yeah, I mean, they'd have to literally go out and wipe out all the nodes. They'd have to get people to stop using this exchange. And in fact, the people that are not the big players, but the people that are actually just somewhat big are starting to use this. I mean, people are getting away from stocks. People are getting away from investing into assets that aren't, well, tangible in a sense. And cryptocurrency isn't tangible, but it's the idea that we're using blockchain to further on the movement of information online and exchanges. And I think people, once they start to realize what Bitcoin is versus what blockchain is, you'll see a big difference. I mean, Bitcoin is a blockchain, but blockchain is the infinite world that you can turn and use everything to transact, securely, anonymously. Smart contracts. I mean, I talk about this in the letter C. If you guys go check that out, the episode just prior to this. And it was, yeah, I talked about David Chaum, and he is considered to be Satoshi Nakamoto because he thought of this back in 1982, smart money and like smart contracts and these signatures that you would need to do these transactions. And this is right now probably scaring them so much that they are probably putting a lot of their money into how they're going to flip it over. So that way, when they do crash, this whole system crashes and everybody stops using this ideology of fiat money, which is more of like a brainwash than an ideal. Like it's a brainwash. People can see color with Bitcoin. Yeah, you might be able to buy drugs, but you can also buy things to help your family and help to get off the living off this fiat world and go to the sound economy as well. So it's a very scary time, but it's also a very exciting time. And I think that the biggest thing that we're being attacked on right now is your brain and your information.
Well said, and I would add to that I think fiat is a scam. I mean, it at least it fulfills the Bitcoin maximalist kind of like definition of scam, which is maybe a little bit overused. But if you think about it, like somebody is profiting it hugely, they are selling basically a worthless product that is, not only worthless but actually harmful. So, I would call it a scam.
It's the biggest shill coin. It's the biggest. It's the big crap coin.
Yeah, that exactly. The rules that are binding the fiat system. If it will be just public for everybody, nobody would like to use that kind of money. That someone gets the monopoly to print the money and they can do a business on it. They can go on and profit from it. They can go on and keep some violent army, forcing you to use that money. And they are eliminating all the competition that they can. And, it's just crazy.
One thing about the competition, and then you can go on. I just want to drop some knowledge because I wasn't aware that, for example, Bank of Finland is not owned by the state. It's like all central banks, it's a private company. So that's really something to think about. Like, what are the actual incentives of a private company, and why are they in charge of the money supply?
And these then are basic Kantian effects. Who gets the money first? Because these people will gather a lot of wealth, and they will not get it for free. They will get it at the expense of those that hold on to the money, those that hodl the shitcoin that is being controlled by those that control the money supply. Because that is the important part, not how much the money can buy, no, but how much the money supply changes. Because if it changes in favor of some people and against the favor of others, then this is a wealth transfer. And that is where the poisonous stuff happens, because that's what starts the boom and bust cycle, which further increases the spread between rich and poor, right? Between those who have the money and those who don't. And this is, again, done through inflation and forced and coerced inflation. And that is also where Bitcoin brings such a beautiful system with running a full node. You set your own monetary rules, and you can choose whichever monetary rules you like. If you want to have a centralized cabal of people controlling the money supply, go to Ethereum. That's the currency for you. If you want to have a money supply that is governed by laws of mathematics and laws of consensus, as it is treasured in Bitcoin, well, there is kind of only Bitcoin, right? The only truly unchanging protocol, where you know that consensus will not shift away from 21 million supply cap, because that's what keeps it us users, the strong user core base, the full nodes. That is what is important here. And that is something that only Bitcoin truly has.
I totally agree with Max. And yeah, that's a good point that, there's so many different coins that even though if you wouldn't like for some reason Bitcoin and how it's being distributed and what kind of a view it has, then there's so many different kind of options. But you have to remember that many of these different altcoins are trying to actually, make a currency. And there is a company behind it. There is these creators who are known and probably, they have bought in really well in these coins and now trying to shill it. But the main point that I have is that someone said in Konsensus group pretty well that try to go on and market your own currency without blockchain these days. You just can't do it. These are currencies that are just using this buzzword blockchain right now. So yeah, go ahead and pick yours.
Mate, you're on to something. Absolutely. And this is what I've been saying since I got into blockchain. Like, literally, it hit me one night. I was just flipping, crap coins and trying to get more Satoshis. It was like probably 3 o'clock in the morning, second cup of coffee, And I was like, people are just going to blockchain their names and then sell their coins online. And like, they're just printing money. What is this, And like, I mean, in the same sense, it's literally, you can use blockchain for one thing, but you can also just throw away a lot of Satoshis on another way, or a lot of fiat. And these banks, getting back to it, are doing that. They're running a ton of money, laundering it onto Stellar or Ripple, probably Ripple, even though it's the whole thing the same, all one, off chain of these hard forks, so the same thing. But then they turn it back into their assets, or they're buying their armies or their islands or their lawyers off. This literally is happening right now. And whether they're shilling out crap coins and these companies are doing it, or they're using it to launder the stuff, it's happening. And where do we go from here? I don't know. What do you guys think? What what's going to happen in this next 3 months as the year turns into the end and the new year starts in. What do you guys think is going to happen maybe with the price? What's going to happen with these new coins? What's going to happen with Ethereum? I'll leave it an open-ended discussion with you guys. Kind of tailor it off the next 15 minutes.
Sorry, guys. I'm just quickly jump in here. My battery is running low, so I might just die down. But, well, just this news that I was reading, I don't think maybe it was a few days ago or something like that. You know, there's this new law, or at least in New Zealand and Australia, that you cannot bring in well, okay, let's start over. When you go on and fly over there, you have to go through customs, and customs can go on and ask you to show your phone and or laptop or whatever technical stuff that you have, and you will have to go. Before there was no actually a law that says that you have to give your password to them. They would just go on and try to get it from you, but there's no law. But now there is. You have to just give it to them, or you have to pay $5,000 fine, and still they would confiscate your phone and laptop or whatever. And this just, you know, I think it's pretty weird, since we all have our medical information and, you know, everything in these cell phones or whatever. So it's kind of weird that they can just go on and pick whoever they want, and, you know, start asking them to show all these informations. And it's kind of like, you know, not secure either to go on and tell your password to other people. And I just think that, for example, for cell phones and storing Bitcoins, there's this optimal, great little invention that this Samurai wallet has made, which is the stealth wallet mode. And I just recommend people to get to know it. It's a way to hide your app totally from your phone, that you can access it only if you go on and press a couple of buttons and then your password and call it or something like that. Then the app will pop up. And that's, you know, just, I just love the crypto anarchists and what they do. These kind of little inventions are what keeps it going.
Well, Raphael, I just want to say before you can go to whoever's next to say, that's America. You go to America, you can't bring in a certain amount of money, and you cannot bring in crypto if you don't want them to know what it is. Bottom line. And Australia and New Zealand looks like they're following.
Yeah, I've also heard that it's not a great idea to travel with a hardware wallet at all, because they can also force you to open a treasure or whatever your hardware wallet is. And yeah, I think people really need to take their operation security seriously, and check if you're using a hardware wallet, check if they allow you to use an extra passphrase, because what that allows you to do is essentially create many decoy wallets that you can just have different sums on that you can open, and that does provide plausible deniability. So that's something handy that you can do with a hardware tool. I would still probably not travel with a hardware wallet necessarily. So actually it's not so great as we often make it to be, that it's so free to transfer across borders. I think Brain Wallet is probably the only sure way to transfer it. So just to have the password in your head, but of course that has other risks as well. So yeah, definitely be aware that it's not a sure thing, especially if you go traveling across borders. That's they always want to cut. Go ahead,
Yes,
Max.
and what you bring up about the duress wallets is really important, and that's again something that the Cold Card has down to perfection. Well, not perfection, but it's really good. So there are 3 different types of pins that you can set on top of your 24-word mnemonic seed. So you have the 24 mnemonic words, but then you have 3 different types of pins that will lead you to different paths in this hierarchical deterministic tree structure of private and public keys. The first one, which is a 4 and a 4-digit pin, so it's always in total 8 digits split into 4 two factors. So you can only once you type in the first 4 words, a specific set of 2 other first 4 numbers, sorry, 2 words will appear, and these 2 words will be corresponding to these 4 PIN numbers that you typed in. So only if you know the PIN, then you will show the same correct 2 words. And then you type in the second part of the PIN. So that's already a 2-factor authentication right from the start, kind of. It's not 2-factor, but at least 2 different portals. And then, again, this will either lead you to the main path, where you have your entire stack of Bitcoin, but with a different 4x4 pin combination, you can lead to a honeypot. So that maybe holds 1% of your entire Bitcoin hodlings that you have on here are separate on this little stash, where it is convincing that it is enough, right? But it is also not too much that you would completely stress out over losing. So if it's like, let's say, depending, maybe $1,000, let's say 0.2 Bitcoin, you keep that on the honeypot, and then you keep 5 Bitcoin on the main branch, just as a ratio. Maybe, depending on you, of course. And so in that way, if you're being duressed, you can give the honeypot. However, if you want to be badass and you really want to shove it up the attacker's throat, you can brick the device. And that is again, 3rd pair of keys, again, 4 and 4 pin numbers. And this pin number just will appear on the screen bricked. And that's it. The device has been completely destroyed. It is completely no longer usable. You can do nothing with it other than, well, use it as a brick to push down a paperweight. So that's kind of it. It's completely destroyed. So that is the final kind of like nuclear option, where you just say, okay, well, I brick that device. Keys are no longer on here, and I have to go back to my backup, right, where I store my 24 mnemonic seeds words, and use that in another, again, cold card device, because they are so awesome, to set it up again and to use it now from that point on a completely new device, because this one is broken. So that's the beauty of having such a dedicated and secure, open source, free source hardware wallet.
Wow, Max, you're on it. I love to hear all the stuff that you're putting out with Purism. This cold card wallet, I've always wanted one. Right now, I'm just doing cold storage. I'm not even going to tell you what I use. But anyways, you guys, we have one question in the chat from Henry, who's an awesome follower and great for participation in the chat. Thank you so much, Henry. He says, what do you think are the best places in the world if you want to be as free as possible from the governmental pressure? Well, I can definitely say it's not America, but I'm going to answer this one. I'll pass it to you guys. And then also with the secondary question, besides about where in the world is the best place to be liberated, I also would like everybody to answer the question, what do you think will happen next year, this time, what has happened, and just a prediction. And we'll see in the timeline when this happens next year, what we predicted. My personal opinion of where the best place to live would be Marshall Islands, which is kind of between Australia and Portland or America. So it's right in the middle of the Pacific in the southern part. And they're actually trying to use just cryptocurrency along Bitcoin that they use for the currency. And it's pretty new. I did talk about it, Marshall Islands, a little bit back. And it's quite interesting. The U.S. government is really pushing them to not back their money by a cryptocurrency. And I think it's just like 3 or 4 different islands. But in this day and age, you have to be so small to be safe, you know, or be decentralized. So everybody is part of it. You're part of the web, you know, and that's what Bitcoin is. So my prediction, besides living in the Marshall Islands, it's being a good idea, is that next time this year, Bitcoin will be backed pretty much by a lot of different, I don't want to call them stable coins, but coins that you can pay your taxes with. So some kind of government-backed coin that they accept it. If not just Bitcoin, we'll see. I know this ETF thing, they're really trying to get it, but it's been trying to go off in the last 3 years. So that's my prediction. I'll leave it at you guys.
What about the price, though, Rico?
I wasn't going to tell you the price. You know, I think the price is going to jump around this time. Just keep it right here. If anything, I'm going to give you a window price. I think that it'll maybe go up to 16. And it might go down to like 3 because they're just going to keep playing it right here. The whole money asset, I think, is being funneled out into projects like Raphael and I were talking about. They're using money to get their islands and their, their yachts, and maybe there'll be a water world or something. But I do think the price isn't going to go back up to 20, and it might, but I really don't think it will, and not in a year's time. I mean, we'll see. Maybe that'll be, I don't know. I don't think it's going to go up to 20 this year, for sure.
Oh, you mean this year or in a year?
Both. I don't think it's going to go up to 20 by December, January of next year, and I don't believe it could go up to 20, but my prediction is it's going to go maybe up to 16,000. But maybe. I think that the price we have right now is adopted. I think we have an adoption price, and speaking from an adopted child, because I'm adopted, it takes time, these things to change. And if it does change, and it changes like it did in December, you had said something earlier, Nika, about this inflation. We can control that. So if we want to control, I mean, if people think that it's worth 6,000 for one Bitcoin, and that's what it's worth, it might go up a little bit because it's gaining actual value. But when it's just being pumped and dumped and boomed and busted, then you always will return, if not to a lower point, before you get that adoption. If you read graphs, you have to realize that you need with the Fibonacci retracement line, with coding, not coding, but with just the spiral, you need support. Okay, if there's not support, that'll go back down to the point where there's support again. Okay, it's just numbers. Okay, 3, 6, 9. Okay, so I don't believe it's going to go to 16,000 like that. Maybe in the next year. That's 20,000. But I do believe it could go up to 16,000, which would be an adoption of 10,000 more where it's at now. But who knows? So maybe 16,000 max by next time this year. And the Marshall Islands is, I do believe, a safe place to live. But I couldn't, 100% be sure. Off the grid would be one way to go.
Yeah, I like off the grid. Raphael, what do you think? Price wise, and also your final words, and where do you think is the best place to live without government pressure?
Well, actually, I have to honestly say that I don't know which place would be the best to live without the governmental pressure, but I'm actually interested in it myself also. So please, people, drop in a comment if you know some good places and why. And I don't agree with Rico's bearish view of the markets, but I think that in a year, the fiat system will see all the time a little bit more of crumbling, and it will end up people trying to get their money off, and there's going to be some new banks that are gonna fall, and people are gonna have to bail them out, and the system's gonna change. I just think that by 2020, there's gonna be a big chaos within the fiat system, and I think that the altcoins, most of them are gonna just die. They don't actually have anything useful or necessary or needed. But there's going to be some new different kind of coins that actually might make sense with these Mimble-Wimble type of systems, or with different types of Lightning Network. And the stable coins are going to be like mushrooms in the rain. They just keep popping up. Yeah, that's my prediction pretty much. I think that the price, I just think that by 2020 we're gonna be seeing that 100K or something like that.
Well, what about for next year? This time next year, if in a year from now when we do a show again, I'm predicting max 16,000, but who knows? What do you think the price will be?
I'll maybe put in 60,000.
Ooh, that sounds good. So, Raphael, where can people find more about you?
You can find more about me in Telegram and in Twitter with the name CryptoRave. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. And please,
Awesome.
people, check out the Konsensus shop also. There's some
yeah.
cool little shirts and all that you can buy to support this channel and this association. And please go on and put on the comments. Tell what would you like to see. Ask us some questions, and participate in the community.
Max, what do you think? Where is the best place to live without government control? And what's your price prediction, and what's going to happen in the world within the next year? And your final words, and where can people find more about you?
Well, the Zen answer would be that you can only find peace outside if you find it within. So I do believe that first you have to clean up your own house and make sure that you yourself live in accordance with your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And when you have that, you are already free, right? You just have to realize it and claim your freedom and claim your self-ownership. And you can do that wherever. Of course, there are some places that are more suitable and might make it easier than other places. Yeah, but that's life. It's never easy, but it's always a choice. And personally, I do think that having more a nomadic lifestyle is quite interesting, because if you do not claim, or if you do not lay if you do not lay your base for a longer period of time, nobody's going to come bother you because they don't even know that you're there. So I do think that this digital nomad life is quite interesting, precisely because you then can actually communicate with your tribe, right? We live in cyberspace. We are communicating right now in our tribe, right? In our agora on the marketplace between us peers. We are communicating, exchanging ideas. This is already, social discourse and conversation. And this can be achieved wherever you are physically, thank God, with modern day communication and encryption. That is really important. We're going to increase that even more. So I do think that this digital nomad lifestyle will increase, and jurisdictional arbitrage is perfect. As long as you're mobile, you can leave, and walking with your feet is quite powerful. Especially if you can keep your money with you all the time in this little computer device. Or maybe honestly,
which looks like a calculator.
But honestly, with your phone, I've spoken to that with a couple peers at the Baltic Honey Badger conference. We have never met someone like everyone. Like we're talking to Adam Back and to Eric Lombroso and to Francis Poulain, and they're like, have you ever met someone who's been stolen private keys from his phone? Like actual leakage of the private key on the phone. We never have. Like I've never heard of someone, not even on Reddit or Twitter. If it was by bad placement of the backup phrase, right? But that's user's fault, not the app's. And especially like right now, I'm downloading the Bitcoin full blockchain on my phone because I can run a fucking full node on my phone. What? That is amazing. So there are these tools available, right? And I do think that a lot of that is going to keep advancing. So that is going to be beautiful, beautiful to see.
And price?
Oh yeah, the price. It's going to be where you value it, because that's important. It's about individual, interpersonal time preference, and that is what the money is based upon. So the value of Bitcoin depends on how willing you are to postpone your satisfaction, and that is different for everyone in every situation. So we can never predict that. For me, the price of Bitcoin is really high. I treasure it quite a lot. Why? Because I do believe that it is a sound money which we can build an economic foundation upon. So for me, I will treasure Bitcoin always quite a bit more than probably other people who are selling it right now, right? People are still, no, I don't want to have that. I'm like, you don't want to have that? What? It doesn't make sense. Come on, reason, logic. But, the price, I don't know. It's going to be high, for me at least.
So above 10 or below 10 in the next year?
One Bitcoin will always be one Satoshi. And even better, I love what Samurai has been doing just the last couple of days. And I've been a supporter from the second that they announced it, was that they have removed all ties to fiat currencies in their app. So there is no longer any fiat currency intermingled with the pure awesomeness of Bitcoin. So this app now only shows the Satoshi and the Bitcoin amount of your Bitcoin in this private key set, and nothing else. So no fiat, no euro, no US dollar. So this is a pure Bitcoin wallet now with a bunch of amazing stuff coming. You can already connect it to your to your GoTenna mesh network, routing then the payment over a Blockstream satellite. That is insane stuff that you can already do with this wallet. And I love it that they now have kicked out fiat, which is perfect because I've been living and calculating and feeding and just thinking in Bitcoin as my main currency for over a year now. So that is exactly what I've been waiting for.
Well, that's a sound position. You're not taking a position. That's a pretty good idea. You're staying on the positive side as always. And Nico, we'll wrap it up with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just do my my final speech here. I don't know about. I've been looking into quite a bit of different jurisdictions, where to found a company, for example, and where to move. I'm in the process of looking for a better place as well. And I really have to say I agree with Max with the digital nomad kind of a lifestyle. I think that's really going to be a big thing in the future, because truly we are living in a global village society that we can just kick up a board meeting of a company at any time. We can even do it live, and it's no biggie. Like really, it's not a big deal for most of us anymore. So I'm looking forward to some kind of like maybe that kind of a lifestyle could be free. Certainly, a lifestyle with less possessions has been more fulfilling for me, because once you have things, once you own things and you have possessions, you have to think about them. You have to devote energy and time to take care of them, and the things kind of end owning you. So personally, I've sold like pretty much everything in my life for like at least 3 times, and then you always, when you sell down, you accumulate things, and that's the way it goes. But it's sometimes good to do a purge, because then once you realize that your life can fit in a backpack, you will feel quite light, not just physically, but also mentally. I can tell that from my own experience, and it's quite a nice feeling. So I think that's something certainly on the plate. And I do like how the technology has advanced, like those I really want Max to help me to build this portable standalone full node with satellite link, and hopefully hacked satellite transmitter that can actually transmit Bitcoin transactions as well. So that's going to be super awesome with maybe some solar panels and whatever we can come up with. So that's definitely going to be something interesting to do. I don't do price predictions anymore, because I realized I suck at those, but can always be hopeful. And like Max said, I really like what you said. It is personal preference, really. And for me, the price is also very, very high. And I do not sell Bitcoin unless my life depends on it, or my family's life depends on it. So that's a high price for me. I'm in permanent accumulation mode. So it is a personal thing. And I can't believe people are actually letting it go like a dirty sock, pretty much, to just sell it, let it off your hands so easily. So for me, very, very, very precious. And I do think by the end of the year, I don't think we might see a new all-time high. I certainly want to believe that. I do think 1 year from now, we should have seen the new all-time high already, which should be somewhere around the 100K range. So we might be in the middle of like another pullback, or still on the bull run 1 year from now. So I'll place the price somewhere around the, hold on, probably like 60, 70K 1 year from now.
Just look out for the halving.
Exactly.
Yeah, the halving memes.
Yeah. Well, you guys, it's been a pleasure talking about this stuff. Hopefully Ross is going to get pardoned, as well as Cody Wilson. For those of you who want to protect yourself on the outside, who are already out on the outside, get a Purism laptop, go to the Hackers Conference, figure it out. Max, bring us some information from there. If you guys get a chance, go to pick up a ticket for the Helsinki Blockchain Conference. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be there in spirit. I will be having meetings just like this, and everybody in the chat, you guys can join along. Go check out the merchant website. If you want to go check out any of us as well, you can find Max at Liberty, towardsliberty.com, Nico at go ahead. Thank you. Dave. Just was looking for that Tallycoin fundraiser, and you guys, thank you so much for helping this channel go. We need you. It's a consensus, and if you haven't checked out the ABCs of Bitcoin, I talk about consensus quite a bit. And that's what it's all about, okay? We're all in this together. So at least you get a voice, you know? Run your own node, protect your own keys, and most of all, take care of each other, guys. So from Helsinki, from Europe, all together, thanks, guys, for letting us be part of your evening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in.